Hello, Internet. We are back. This is Mia Nielsen, Director of Art Toronto, and I am here today with Independent Curator and Creative Director, Ashley McKenzie-Barnes.
Hi. Hello. Hello, Mia.
Hello. Tell us about yourself, Ashley.
So, as you mentioned, I'm an independent curator, which means that I span across anything from, doing some exhibition designs to curating for festivals or institutions. Most recently, one of my bigger festivals was for Harbourfront, which was celebrating 25 years of Kumba Festival, which is Canada's longest running Black History festival, and it was a range of anything from dance to installation to multimedia and education. So it was like a pretty robust festival that happened for a month. But then I also do, I've done smaller grassroots organizations like Manifesto, and then I've done large public art fairs like Nuit Blanche. So definitely a range of work. Where also as a creative director, it's similar too, where I've worked everywhere from, Free the Children to most recently Scotiabank and currently with Indigo. So I have like a nice split. I consider myself more of like a creative professional altogether.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us, from this mad world of isolation and our COVID reality, tell us how you're looking to the future. What is the art world you want to create?
Definitely. I mean, I think it's twofold, because I definitely know that the stories that we share as curators and art facilitators and programmers are going to be very responsible, I think, post something like COVID, right? What are the discussions we want to have? What are the dialogues? There's going to be a lot of healing. There's a lot of post-traumatic symptoms. There's a lot of loss. What's the discussion then? And how are we unifying our voice? And what stories do we want to share from across the globe? And what do we really think is what voices do we really think are important? So I think that's one thing where I'm seeing that a lot of artists are how they're utilizing their social platforms and what they can do and how they contribute, I think is beautiful. And I've been paying attention to that. And those are the type of artists that I definitely would want to work with in the future. And then it's how, right? The big how. Mm-hmm. I've been working a lot in the virtual space and understanding how to pivot business that's very physical into that space. And I think that there's so much potential as we embrace new technologies, as we embrace like video conferencing and AR technology, and how we're using, like you said, our screens. And I think that there's potential there. And also like finding these ways to still partner with galleries or small businesses or just studios that, like in a very responsible way through social distancing, but allowing to give up these spaces for artists to use and to install and to create new works and showcase new works, and then how we can take it from one physical space and get it to the virtual space globally. And I think that there's something really interesting there, and I think there's a really important task that once we do figure out how to pivot and shift in that way, how to pivot, shift. That's a good new word. Pivot.
You got it.
These are things that these are tools, and these are ways that we'll continue to curate and create new experiences with. And I would love to work with artists where it's completely remote, but we can reach a larger audience because of how we've been able to embrace technology and unique spaces, but still while being able to keep that physical piece open. So when we, our doors open up and we're not so confined, that piece is available, but for who? And like, how do we offer that experience, the physical space versus the virtual space?
Mm-hmm. Do you see them combined or like on a kind of parallel?
I see them combined.
Feature?
Yeah, like I see them combined because, we can't remove the fact that there's also consumerism within the art world, and there's also, buyers and collectors and people who want to see and feel and touch and experience. What I am afraid of is that, depending if we do this shift, how elitist it might become, those physical experiences, and who that might be offered to, rather than the ones who can just tune in and see it online. And I've always kind of toyed with that, even when I look at DJs and people who are doing live things now and they're doing it for free. And then how valuable does now that physical or like the in-person experience become? And what the price tag that's going to be put on that. Like, I kind of worry about that, right? Because, with innovation and new ways of experiences come like the capitalism piece of it or the consumerism piece of it. So while staying on the positive lens, I definitely think they can be combined. And I think it would be great to, again, like transform a space that's in complete isolation, and be like the artist that's in the desert right now with the project. I always forget his name, but like just something. And I mean, that's a perfect example. We'll have to look up his name afterwards, and everyone's gonna be like, "How do you forget this project?" But the artist that's been in the desert for like the last like 10, 15, 20 years working on that project that Kanye West gave him millions of dollars towards, and now only the people who can go see it are the ones who can pay the big bucks to go see it. Right? Yeah. So what I would want to do is something very similar to that, where there is something very unique and very special that can be offered, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a price tag. It could also be for underrepresented communities. It could be for students. It could be for youth. It could be for people who don't usually have access to art, or it could just be a very private thing as well. I think there's different ways we can spin it. But I would love to be able to see the other side of that and what that experience would be for the ones who maybe can't go to the middle of the desert. So how do we bring that in very high level, technology-based, robust platforms, and how can that experience be enjoyed? And we're not in the age that we can't do it. Like, we just started getting into augmented reality. When we look at things like the Funhouse at here in Toronto when it opened up, and I know like it's still the age of people going in and seeing kind of these Instagrammable houses. But it was a little bit more than that for me too, because I think that the way that they had adapted the AR technology was really awesome. And I think that we now have a chance to pick up a physical catalog, or like anything that's printed, or like scan a QR code, and boom, the experience is given to you on your screen. And I think the way that we curate that is going to be the challenge. But in that challenge is magic, right?
Yeah, for sure. Are there artists working online right now that you think are really pushing the boundaries and connecting with audiences in unique ways?
No, that's a good question. I haven't, and I'm sure that there are. I haven't seen anything, and I said this earlier, like, we're only a month and a half in.
Right.
So unless you were already doing that work,
yeah,
I don't know how quickly you could have adapted to it right now.
Right.
I would be interested to see like Felipe Pantone, who is already working with like such techie savvy work. I don't know if he's shifted, but that's probably a profile I'll check out afterwards. But I feel like his work is something that could easily adapt into that space. But in terms of seeing artists who are already doing it, not as yet. And I think maybe that's because it's still something that, like, I've seen a lot of people going into virtual, but in a way that I think is super compelling and it's sustainable, and it's talking about the idea that I'm thinking about, not as yet. And that's probably just because it would take some time to develop. But I have seen a lot of artists developing work for the current crisis that's at hand, which is a pandemic, which is COVID. And I've been paying attention to a lot of artists doing it that way, which I still think is very current and very important. So I feel like most of my attention has been looking at the artists who are kind of using their work for a greater cause.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ash.
Thanks, Mia. It's so nice to see your face.
Yeah, great to get your feedback on this crazy time, and we look forward to seeing the projects that you're looking at in the future. Feel free to tag Art Toronto if you see
Oh,
anything great on Instagram, and we'll repost that and continue this conversation virtually.
I will. I will.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Art Toronto does, you know?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
gonna be it's gonna be an interesting year, and a year that I think will inspire some really interesting evolution in terms of broadening the reach of the fair, but also maintaining that personal connection that makes art fairs so interesting.
Yeah.
So I will keep you posted on how that's all developing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, thanks.
We'll talk again soon.
You know it.